Scrubs. So for those of you who aren't familiar with the term, it is used in Magic the Gathering to refer to players who are just terrible. They're unwilling to adapt to the overall power level of other players and their decks and all that. And they basically want you to conform to how terrible at the game they are. And they're a complete burden to your playgroups. And they're pretty much the main problem. One of the main problems when it comes to the players in Magic. I think we can all complain about something that Wizards does, but sometimes you have to complain about the community and what things we can do to help make it better. One of the things is stopping scrubs from taking over the game of Magic. It's an epidemic, and it's currently plaguing every play group, every FNM. They have to deal with scrubs, and they ruin the integrity of the game because you see just random people. They see a group of people who are playing Magic, and it doesn't matter what format, but they see that they're having fun, they're enjoying their game, and suddenly they want to join in. But what do you know? Surprise, surprise! They're not serious about actually learning how to play the game. They just think that it looks cool. It's going to be something like Cards Against Humanity, where they don't have to take it seriously, and they get to enjoy a different type of game. That's pretty much it. There's a lot of players that are like that. They come in, they don't take it seriously. They spend as little as possible on actually getting cards, which that's not the main problem, but you get where I'm going. They don't put a lot of effort into their decks, but yet they complain whenever they lose. As if you're supposed to play down to their level, which you shouldn't. If you're a good player, you shouldn't have to suffer having to deal with these assholes in your playgroup. But it happens everywhere. It's in every playgroup, every FNM. You have to deal with people who are like this. They go in with the highest of expectations, and then they're suddenly disappointed with, oh wow, my $20 deck didn't do me any good. Well, I mean, depending on the format, you have different price points to enter. A standard is at least a few $100s to make the best possible decks you can make. And modern, you're talking thousands. And legacy, vintage, I can go on and on. Commander, I think, suffers from this problem the most because you have such a variation in price entering. How you can have players that just buy one of the precon decks and suddenly they're in the format. They could have friends that try to help them out and enter the format by giving them just a random legendary creature, give them a bunch of crap cards, bulk rares and shit, and suddenly they're in the format for pretty much free, because I know some people who will give away cards for free to new players to help them learn, and they think that they're doing something good for the game, or they're helping players learn, it is good, but unfortunately way too often players don't take the game seriously, and it seems like a wasted effort. You try to teach players the rules, you try to teach them how to become competitive, at least moderately competitive. You don't have to be this super competitive, I'm going to go win a pro tour, stuff like that. Just have a good understanding of the rules, enough to keep the integrity of the game intact, to where suddenly we're not cheating all the time, or we're not just, we're just going to draw 2 cards and forget about it, or we're just going to forget about this trigger or that, activated ability, all this shit. And basically, when you conform to scrubs and, their logic, you have to bend the rules entirely. If you let them take over, pretty much the rules don't matter anymore. They get to do whatever the hell they want because they're only willing to put in a very little amount of money to play games, and yet they want to be as competitive as you. They get upset when they're not winning games, and they're going to complain about it all day long, even though you could spend thousands making your deck as optimized as possible, which there's nothing wrong with. I mean, Commander's not that expensive, and it's really not expensive to optimize your decks when you think about it as a long-term value. It's not going to be that expensive. I mean, $1,000 over like a couple years. I mean, it can be a journey to invest in optimizing your deck. It's not anything that's super expensive, as long as you kind of, separate out different, cards you want to get. But unfortunately, a lot of new players, they just want to come into the game and they want to be good right away. They don't there's going to be growing pains. I'm sorry to tell you this, but if you're a new player, there are going to be growing pains. It's a part of the game. Alright, you're going to have to understand rules. And unfortunately, one of the harder things for new players to understand is triggered abilities, activated abilities, what the hell the difference is. Now, I could probably do videos and explain the difference between a whole lot of different things that, seems to be very difficult for new players to understand, but that's not what this video is about. This video is about scrubs and their unwillingness to learn, their unwillingness to assimilate with whatever playgroup they're in. They just like being toxic, and overall they like being a burden to the playgroup because they think that they're so important that, oh wow, look at me and my cards. Now I'm suddenly playing the same game that you guys are playing, even though you guys have been playing for years, and I just started. Oh, look at me, everybody. I mean, I don't have a problem with new players, and I'm not trying to say that all scrubs are necessarily new players, because I know a lot of people who have been playing the game a long time that are still scrubs. They're still the same exact scrub as the new players too, because they have the same attitude and they have the same approach to each game. Conform to my lack of knowledge of the game, or I'm going to get upset and ruin the game for you. And it's many different ways. They act disinterested. They basically try to get you to bend the rules into their favor because they're either stupid, or they're new, or they just don't care enough about the game as they should if they want to get better. They always complain about losing, but whenever, someone says, oh, get better, said I shouldn't have to, it's a card game, I only spend like $35 to get into Commander, why should I have to get good? You guys should get to my level, you guys should start sucking so I could win a game or two. They always complain about it, but then I say, hey, you could go on tcgplayer.com, get better cards to make your deck better, but they always say, I don't have enough money. Well, maybe you shouldn't be playing Magic the Gathering then. And I don't like saying that to new players because I don't really want to discourage them. I'm not that type of person. I will say that to people who complain consistently. They make it a habit of complaining about how expensive cards are, and, get a job, get something to help you pay, sell some of your shit, help pay for decks. I don't know what else to tell you. That is really the only way that you can get into any format in Magic, with the exception of Pauper, which is, again, more people need to play that because not enough do. It is the cheapest format, and new players should start playing that because the price point to enter that and play a competitive deck is about $50, give or take $5 or $10. But still, it is very affordable to enter that format, but yet we don't see new players starting to play that, which they should, because they learn a lot about fundamentals of the game. There's not a lot of complex interactions in Pauper compared to other formats. It'd be a lot easier, but again, Commander, it can be quite difficult for new players to enter, but yet a lot of new players are entering because of the price point to enter, because that the fact that they come out with pre-con decks every single year now, and I wouldn't be surprised if they start doing them 2 to 3 times a year now, because of how popular Commander is as a format and how much it is growing because of the pre-con decks, because so many people are obsessed with, oh wow, we got 4-color Commander decks, everything like that. We want to get into this format now because we only have to spend $35 and we can just play with you guys who are way more experienced. But again, I mean, if you're a new player, you are not necessarily a scrub. You can go and buy a pre-con deck as long as you understand that you're going to lose the majority of your games if you play against me or any other experienced player in our playgroup. There is a price to enter into our playgroup. It means you're going to have to eat some shit and take a bunch of L's because that's what it is being a new player. You're going to suck, but that's how you learn. That's how you go down the road and say, hey, I had it rough starting out, but it trained me to become a competitive player. I think about the game a lot more competitively than most other people do because I started out getting beat the shit out of in games. No one took it easy on me because I was new. And guess what? That helps people. Again, don't coddle new players just because they're new and they have terrible decks compared to you. Be rough on them. Beat the crap out of them with your expensive decks because that's how you learn. I'm like, hey, You know, that's the best way to improve your deck, is to say, hey, look, all these other cards in the format are expensive, but if I take my time, I optimize my deck, I look on TCG Player, I go on EDH Rec, I go on different websites, see what cards I need to make my deck better, and then I go from there. And that's the best way to improve as a new player. But again, the only reason why I'm talking about new players so much, just to clarify, is because not all new players are scrubs, but the majority of scrubs are new players. I know plenty of people who are scrubs that don't necessarily fall into the new player category. Some have been playing for a few years, some have been playing for decades. A lot of it has to do with the price point, yeah, sure. But again, you don't have to buy into the most expensive decks in order to know what the hell you're talking about, in order to know how the hell to play the game. That's not how you succeed in Magic. It's not necessarily the price point. You don't have to spend thousands to make a good deck. You just have to spend maybe a couple hundred. It's not difficult to do. I mean, the average player in Magic is in their 20s at least. Again, I think that's the average, is around like 25 or something like that. So, I mean, if you're 25 years old, let's just take a guess, and you should have a job. I mean, you should have some sort of income or some access to money that's yours, and you should be able to spend some of it on a deck if you want to get into any format you want to. But of course, you have younger players, and Magic is starting to appeal to younger generations with the mobile games, the fucking game that looks like it's Candy Crush or Bejeweled or whatever. That's basically what they have now. They got mobile games, you have Magic Duels, you have MTG Online isn't necessarily new player friendly, but you know, still, it's online game. It's been out for a while, but they're trying to appeal to, you know, younger kids by making it more affordable. And one way to do that is to make online games, you know, inspired by Magic, and that's apparently what they're trying to do now. I don't really know how to take it. I don't like playing online versions of a game that is significantly better in its card form. I feel like that cheapens the experience to me. But anyway, I just think that for new players, just understand it's gonna take a while for you to understand how to play the game. But if you get an attitude about it unnecessarily, you will get called out for it, and you will be called a scrub occasionally. Don't get surprised when that happens, because it's going to, and you deserve it, because if you're one of those assholes that expect everyone else to conform to your level of play, they're not going to. You're a burden to your play group. Stop being a burden and just accept the fact that you're going to lose more games often than not. And so anyway, I think I've ranted long enough about the topic. I'll probably rant about it in the future. So anyway, if you like my videos, please subscribe. I will continue to do more, and I will continue to choose different video games as the background. But anyway, please subscribe. Thank you.